everyone, Charizze here, and welcome to this January 2024 Bullet Journal Plan With Me video. I am so excited to share this first monthly setup in my new journal from Archer and Olive, and if you haven't seen my yearly setup video, I will leave the link in the video description so you can watch it later. But let's get started already and set up my January cover spread. I will be painting the illustrations using watercolors, but you can also use your preferred coloring tools if you want. My theme this month is inspired by vintage journaling. My January themes have been about vintage stuff for 3 years in a row, but I hope you will like this one. We're going to use a lot of warm, earthy tones in this setup, and we started to take paints onto our palette. We mixed dirty white with Chinese white and a little bit of raw umber. We also have burnt sienna and raw umber separately. These are the only colors for now, but we'll gradually add more as we go. The color combinations I used will be displayed on the screen, but you can always experiment different mixtures if you don't have the specific color. We're painting a picture of old notebooks or diary in a flat lay perspective, and we're using the whole spread for my cover. We begin painting an open notebook with the dirty white mixture right on the center of the spread towards the bottom. We will be painting a eucalyptus on the front later, that's why we're not painting the pages entirely. We also paint the corners and edges a little bit darker, as well as around the line that divides the notebook illustration. Then we're taking burnt sienna to paint this little ribbon bookmark, and with the same color we can move on to paint another vintage diary with a leather cover. I'm going to be honest, I was not expecting to have struggles painting in this notebook. I used Archer and Olive before and it has uncoated dry paper, but that was bought a couple years back. And I'm aware that this new one has a slight coating when I got it, and I didn't worry about that when setting up my yearly spreads, nor did I test paint on it. But yeah, everything has changed. Archer and Olive, if you're watching, I just want to say I miss your old paper because it was so easy to paint, but I guess I just need to get used to this. And I somehow did when I got in the middle of the setup, though I still need to adjust and find a technique to achieve the look that I want for my paintings. My watercolor paintings really look different depending on the type of paper. I may have to use watercolor paper more for bigger illustrations like this in this notebook. I think this may work better with gouache paints since they can be painted in pretty much any surface. So yeah, this is just a little heads up if you're considering getting an Archer and Olive dotted notebook for your bullet journal and love painting watercolors on them. Anyway, back on our illustration, we are painting a metal binder clip attached on the top corner of the page using the raw umber color and going back again to the leather journal to paint the lock. We already painted the base with a light yellow and just adding the details and shadows using a mix of raw sienna and raw umber. Then on the bottom right corner, we are painting a dip pen. We're using yellow for the gold nib, brown for the nib insert, and a mixture of light oxide, purple, and Van Dyke brown for the holder. Likewise, we start by the flat layers of these colors, then we add the second layer for the shadows, especially around the edges of the pen holder to create some dimension. You can really paint anything journaling related in this picture and arrange the elements as you wish. And I like that about this theme because there are just so many beautiful elements you can combine to create your own composition. So here I just added some more paper under the dip pen and under the leather journal. Then another open notebook on the left hand side where the other page is folded to the back, and an old journal painted with sepia to create a contrast. Both of them are stacked behind. Hopefully I'll remember saying this, but I think next time I'll have to paint in smaller scale because bigger elements like this will take a bigger block of color. And so on this new paper, I was trying to even out the colors by spreading the pigment as fast as I can while the paint is still wet. But like I said, I was still adjusting to it. But when I looked at it again, I think it's not bad at all. And it really depends on the eyes looking at a piece. Sometimes other people like it streaky and textured. Some like it smooth and seamless. Anyway, we are now done with the journal elements. We are now painting some props on this flat lay image. So we're painting a eucalyptus on top of this journal. We're using olive green and Van Dyke brown to paint the leaves. And since the paper is quite coated, the paint kind of pulls on the area where your brush runs before pulling it up. So I like to drag them toward the stem so it gives shadows to our leaves. You can see it leaves some harsh lines when dried, but another way is you can start a layer with very light consistency. Then when it's dried, you can come back again to add a darker tone towards the end of the leaves close to the stem. It feels nostalgic to include eucalyptus again on my January theme because all the January setups in the past 2 years have them. And speaking of that, I will be listing the printable version of my January 2023 setup on my shop by the end of the year. My shop is on holiday break right now, but since this is just a digital product, I won't need to ship anything. In case you missed it, yes, I am making all the 2023 bullet journal monthly setups available for 2024. And of course, the calendars will be adjusted. Alright, on the spaces left here, we painted another binder clip, a pair of glasses, and a cup of coffee peeking on the corner. Again, these can be anything, like maybe you can paint some more pens or stuff you use to decorate your journals just to fill the spaces here. But when we are done with the painting, we're going to write a scripture on the left page of our notebook illustration. This could be your favorite quote or saying of the month. For me, I decided to write whatever scripture it shows on the Bible app, and it happens to be from 1 Peter 3:15. I really love that this is the verse that showed up. As an active Christian now, I think many forget about this and it scares away those who don't know the Lord and they end up fighting or arguing. I'm talking in a place of experience because I was that person who got scared away by religious people who don't realize that they are misrepresenting Him. So yeah, even in disagreement or persecution, we, as much as possible, need to represent Christ's character with gentleness and respect. And for me, asking the Holy Spirit's help to calm me down and to say the right words, or sometimes just to be quiet, is the way. So we also wrote Dear January for our monthly title, and that's pretty much it for my cover spread. I really hope you like it. But now we can move on to our next spread. We are painting a rectangular shape using the off-white color and a yellowish brown border and a washi tape painting on top. This is going to be for a small calendar. So I'm trying to illustrate a desk wall where we like to attach things on the wall, and most of them are calendars. By the way, I'm using my Ferris wheel press fountain pen and their ink called Writing Desk. I just wrote January and a mini calendar here with some spaces below to write some important dates. It's gonna be a quiet time for me after the busy holidays, so I won't need a big calendar. And I honestly can't wait to spend some quiet time creating, reading more scripture, watch some shows, and just really enjoy some downtime. After the calendar, we are painting a couple eucalyptus wall decor that is hanging upside down. To paint foreground and background leaves depends on the placements of the shadows, and you can also leave a little space between leaves to separate them. Under the eucalyptus, we are painting a wax seal stamp. There are many image references online too, so you can choose what design you want to paint here. But I went for something with a handle that is quite detailed. We're using the same reddish brown paint we had for the dip pen, and then yellow for the stamp head. Again, we're just adding a bit of the darker shade of the paint to build the shape. Alright, this is the fun part for me on this spread. We are going to create separate journal designs. So I pre-cut and fold these watercolor paper. One is longer like a traveler's notebook and one is like a pocket notebook. But the sizes can vary depending on how you like it. So let's work on the long one first and attach it unfolded on the notebook with washi tapes for the meantime. I recommend adding enough allowance on all edges for the tape to hold onto, especially if you like to attach them to your notebook like this so the paint won't seep through and get paint all over the pages. This is something you will need to be extra cautious, but of course you can attach it somewhere else like a board or something. So this is just me taking the risk since I have a painted illustration behind. We are painting a leather-like appearance on this paper. We wet the whole surface first with water using a large flat brush. This makes the work quicker. And while it is still wet, we can quickly apply burnt sienna all over it. We can start with a light consistency and then add more pigments on some areas. And we're trying to make it look like a worn out leather, like a well-loved old diary. Also, we left some spaces on the four corners because we're gonna be painting gold details on them later on. I don't really know what they're called, but yeah, the metal corners. So I'm grabbing a gold watercolor and I'm using a dropper to add water on it because I don't want to mix gold on the water on my glass since I'm still using it for other paintings. Metallic colors work best when you let it sit for a little while and just don't immediately use it. So we are just painting a simple corner design. The overall painting process for this is very easy and uncomplicated. It's just the drying time that you'll have to wait on. But after that, we can finally remove the washi tapes and cut out the white margins and round the corners a bit. Obviously, this is an interactive layout, so the next thing we will do is create these wooden case illustration where we can insert the journal cover designs using a longer strip of watercolor paper. We are applying a mix of Naples yellow and burnt sienna, do a flat layer first, and then create some wood textures. We're gonna have two of these actually. One is shorter with a little lock on the center, and the other one is longer, just a plain wooden case. We still adjusted the size and then glued them on the pages. I also attached some scratch paper on the back, and I'm sorry it wasn't included in the footage, but these are just a little help to hold the journal designs. But on the smaller wood painting, we are extending it to make it look like a wooden box with a cover, just like the casing of the alphabet stamps. And the same way on the other side, but just without the cover. So I already painted the smaller one off camera using a sepia color or dark brown with a little bit of black and painted the corners with gold as well. It's just painted the same way, and then we're going to stamp the front with the titles. The bigger one will be for my monthly plans and habit trackers for the smaller one. You can create as many journal designs as you want, but I recommend scanning and printing your watercolor designs on thinner paper because I used a 300 GSM paper. So if you're someone who doesn't like a bulky feel on your pages, that is a better way to do it, I guess. And just apply the gold details after to keep the shimmer. I wanted the letters to look like they are debossed on the cover, so I'm just using the alphabet stamps as a guide to paint the letters with gold as well. So now we have journals inside a journal, and then it's time to do some scrapbooking style inside them. I know it looks like a lot of work already, but for some of you who loves to scrapbook or junk journal, I know you will enjoy this idea. I gathered various papers that I can use to decorate. The vintage journaling box that the brand Cold Paper World sent me happens to have these beautiful decorative papers, and I love that there are handwriting designs that match this diary theme. So we're going to use them to decorate the insides for the journal designs. There are really no rules with how you can scrapbook or junk journal, so I'm just layering them without thinking too much about it. I ended up just using the papers. I showed some die-cut lace designs earlier, but I just didn't get to use it. I also like using the double-sided glue tape because I can still detach the paper if I want to add something else behind. And yes, scrapbooking will require a lot of glue, so I usually get a lot of refills so I wouldn't need to throw the case. We are not really layering a lot of paper. I think this is enough because we are adding these blank papers for the writing areas, which will be for my goals, focus, notes, and ideas. Then we are decorating the habit tracker journal as well. I'm also using this washi tape from Paper Monogatari. Then we're using this clear calendar stamp and the acrylic block from Stationery Pile just to match the whole aesthetic. We are stamping 6 of them on a separate paper. You can use anything really, and just write the habits above each, cut them individually, and glue them inside. I think we can make the size a little bit bigger for the cover of the habit trackers, but again, you can totally customize this to your liking. And you might be wondering what the other holder is for. I like to have a pick what you need section here, and the idea is a box full of ephemeris. So I'm putting on these to get kind of decorative papers where I'm gonna be writing some scriptures on the back later, and then add some more things as a filler. These can be anything too. It's really inspired by vintage journaling collectors where they have these kinds of stuff on their desk. And speaking of which, I'm supposed to paint the desk here, but it completely slipped off my mind. But we already moved on again to the next page. I think I'll add that when it's time to make a printable version of it. Again, it's not gonna be available immediately, but I hope you look forward to it. Okay, this page here will be for my playlist. I decided to paint different fountain and dip pens. I thought it would be incomplete without the collection of writing instruments. So we're painting 5 of them. For a single page, 5 is enough with 4 dot spaces apart for the songs and artists. This is just an extra page for me, but if you are not a fan of playlist pages, you can turn this into a different purpose like a currently list, what you're currently doing or working on. It could also be any other kind of lists, or just keep it as a painting without the writings. You may recognize a couple pens here from my Dear Diary sticker sheets. That also inspired me to create a whole theme about it. I only have one illustrated sticker sheet for it, so I'm thinking about extending the whole collection and add more illustrated ones. So we will see, and hopefully I can add more designs to the shop. I am not really a big fountain pen collector. I only have like 2, and I'm mostly using the Ferris wheel press brush fountain pen and one dip pen that I use occasionally, so I needed to look for reference online. Painting wise, we're just doing the same principles. We start with light base layers, then adding the shadows with a darker tone, which are applied on the edges and in between each part of the pens. Then the details with more pigment on our brush. I think my style is quite similar to how I would use a brush pen, but I just don't really appreciate the streaky effect yet. But after painting the pens, we can stamp the playlist title on the top and write the songs and artists below each pen. I really love the song called Praise by Elevation Worship. I just found it recently and it immediately became a main song, and we danced to it while we praised God. I really like how clean this page looks, but that's it for this playlist. Let's move on again to set up my weekly spreads. I also have 7 pages cut out vertically like this, but let's skip the front page for now and flip to the other side for my first 2 weekly spreads of the year. We're grabbing one of the decorative papers again with writings on it, rip it diagonally so we have 2 of them, and glue on both corners. Then I decided to paint the background of the dates with watercolors. but you can do this with a marker or brush pen. We're using this cream color highlighter to create thick lines for the writing spaces, and then writing the dates and days with my fountain pen. I also went for a vintage style lettering for the days of the week. There was too much space on the left-hand side and I don't know what to put there. The space on the bottom part of the second weekly is quite tight too. I think it would have been better to put the mini calendar on the left page and adjust the layout for the second week. But I guess I'll just do that for the remaining weeklies. But yeah, I used the same paper for my mini calendar and a scripture written below. The next pages will be for my devotional spreads. Likewise, we are decorating this page with the vintage paper. I also added a textured paper with some subtle dried leaves print glued on the middle of the page. Scrapbooking style is a very spontaneous style for me, unlike painting my decorations where I can sketch where to place my illustrations. But for scrapbooking, I decide the placements on the spot, but it's also honestly more time consuming for me than painting. Plus, my desk area gets super messy, but whose desk doesn't, right? I completely forgot about my Into the Word title here and just stamped devotional. But as usual, I'm taking my devotional plan from the YouVersion app, and I chose this 5-day plan called Fulfillment, allowing God to meet our needs. It's really amazing how a specific topic that is very timely to what's currently going on in my life shows up when I'm browsing through the app. So on the other side of the spread, we're setting up for day 1. We just used the leftovers from the papers we used for the title and nicely arranging them on the middle. I will be using the SOAP method or the scripture, observation, application, and prayer. Alright, flipping through the last spread to set up my monthly review pages. This is a useful spread to reflect on how the month went for you and assess what you can bring to the upcoming month or how you can improve a certain area. So we start again with the ripped vintage paper decorations, and this time we are covering both sides of the spread with several designs. You can completely modify or add more elements, but it's only January and we still have more months to go, so I don't want to get it chunkier yet than it already is. And it's gonna get bulky after the whole setup is done. You will see that later. I also decided to add this vintage journaling sticker from my shop to add a bit of an interesting element to my spread. With that said, I'm actually giving away stickers from my shop. One of you will get 10 sticker sheets and 2 individual stickers. It comes with a Dear Diary collection that matches this whole theme. To enter, all you need to do is subscribe, like this video. If you have Instagram, follow my shop account, and comment below what you think of this January setup. Alright, we are almost there, but we still have one more step to go, and this is the exciting part for me. So I have these watercolor papers painted with the same burnt sienna color, and I already cut them into these shapes. One is the same size as the whole page, and another that is bigger with a letter S cut. The painting process is just the same with the previous one. We're gonna glue the bigger paper on the back of the review page, fold it into the front, aligning it to the edge of the pages. Then the smaller one will be glued on the page next to the playlist. So yeah, we are creating a journal inside a journal. Then we cut some strips of the same painted watercolor paper and glue them to mimic the straps of a vintage leather journal. We have 2 long strips glued from the back, and one is glued all the way to the flap, but the other one is not entirely. Then another couple of strips on the front cover. I'm just gonna go back to paint some more shadows and details with a dark brown paint. We're gonna get a separate small piece of watercolor paper to paint a thick small strap, which is done here by the way. Below will be a key. We are painting the background with the same color since I can't cut the hollowed parts. But if you have a cutting machine, you can print and die cut. I recommend using a thicker paper for it. We're painting the whole surface of the key and those two buttons on the strap with our gold watercolor. Then we'll just cut the white spaces off. We are also making a little cut on the right side of the key to insert this strap, fold and glue it on the back. We'll attach both sides of the thicker strap on the front cover and insert our key. Alright, this is finally it for my whole January 2024 bullet journal setup. It is time to do a little flip through with all the spreads we made together. We got quite crafty with this setup, but the labor is worth it for me seeing the end result. I'm really happy with how this vintage journal theme turned out, and I hope you are too. I also like to encourage you to explore with your creativity more. I know it's scary sometimes thinking about making mistakes, but I promise you, you will be surprised by the things you can come up with when you just create without worrying about it. But that's everything for my January 2024 Plan With Me video. Remember to like this video and subscribe if you want to see more bullet journal content from me. Thank you so much for watching. Have a blessed new year and I'll talk to you soon in my next video. Bye everyone!